Hi, welcome to another episode of Hot Takes. Now, Nigel Farage has been giving a speech about the economy and about what Reform plan to do when they become the next government. He's saying it's got to be a competent, planned, and costed economic programme. I agree. And he says at the moment, though, they cannot be looking at tax cuts to begin with, saying the debt is too high, the money just isn't there. He says you've got to cut your cloth according to what you've got. Okay, I agree. He also said it would be foolish to introduce a large sets of tax cuts when the country isn't profitable. I agree. But he is looking at small tax cuts, and he says they've got to be focused on those that need them most. I agree. And what he's looking at is increasing the basic allowance, the tax-free allowance at the bottom, to lift more people out of tax altogether, to put it nearer where it should be, had there been no allowance freeze, etc. But he says where we've got to be able to afford it, he says the only way we can afford it is either to borrow or to cut spending. And he says it is not reform policy to borrow. They're going to be cutting spending. They say they've got so many different ways in which they can save so much money. I'm absolutely right. They want to raise, as I say, the minimum threshold from the 12,571 that it is now to 20,000. They say, but they won't be able to do that in one go, but it will be staged over the 5 years of the government. Okay, I agree. You don't want that to hit too much too quickly. It will bugger inflation, but stepped, and that people are aware, they can factor that in. He wants to raise the highest threshold to 70,000 to encourage entrepreneurship. That's a very good argument, yes. And he wants to abolish inheritance tax on all estates under 2 million. Said that will be a fairer way, he says, because we're sitting at a position now where, like, teachers are falling into the inheritance trap. Said, but inheritance tax was only ever meant to be for the exceedingly rich. Again, I'm agreeing with all of this. It is economic policy with which I can honestly get behind. Now, he's also proposing cuts in spending. So, for example, as we know, there's some things that are definitely going to happen. Motability, that's getting very much sorted out. They're tightening up the rules for that. Foreign aid, it's going to be slashed massively because it's just money going out that we don't need to. They're proposing halving it. I would propose 100% reduction. None at all till we've got the money, available. We can't be paying others if we can't borrow money to give it away, put it that way. And so, there is that. But there's other things as well. There's waste that can happen. They want to restructure the NHS. They say simple restructuring, removing layers of management will save tens of billions a year. I don't doubt that. He said, and that's money that then can be reinvested back in the NHS, but not in management, but in doctors and nurses and equipment and supplies. The things that are actually important. They're full of good ideas and they're costing them all out. They're saying, right, well, the cost of this tax will be X, but we're going to save it by doing Y. The cost of this one will be A, but we're going to save it by doing B, and so forth. It's amazing what happens when you do get people who do know how to run a business, how to make the books balance, how to get value for money, rather than just political types who sit there and dogmatically spend money because they think, oh, it'll make people love us. It doesn't, because the people end up poorer and they loathe you. So he says there's going to be some bitter medicine at the beginning, but it will very quickly turn into much sweeter stuff as the debts come down, as the economy grows. He wants immediate, of course, one of the big things they're going to do is they're abandoning net zero. They say that alone will save over 50 billion a year. They're going to get rid of all the VAT on domestic fuel, energy, gas and electricity, and they're also getting rid of the green tariffs. He said those alone will reduce the cost of energy initially by 30 to 35%. He says they're also going to look at the generating costs because the way it's charged directly is also wrong. They're going to be looking to reduce the generation cost. I see a lot of energy providers thinking, oh, we've got to get out of this game because we can't make as much money as we used to. And that's fine. Let them go. Someone else will take over. And if needs be, we nationalise our energy supply. Absolutely. I think we also need to nationalise our water as well. But, just as a matter of national security, if nothing else. But there we go. Let me know your thoughts on this. I like to see well thought out plans. And I like to see the fact that they're looking to do it slowly and not spook the markets. Everything's going to be piecemeal. We're going to take you on the journey. And the thing is, the markets will put up with just about anything if there's confidence and competence. If they see this is where we are, that's where we're going to go, and this is how we're going to get there, the markets will help you because they'll be looking for opportunities. I think it was Sun Tzu. Confusion leads to chaos. That's right. But it's just there. So if you're going with a plan and you spell out the plan and you bring people along, hold their hands and bring them along, there's no limit to what you can achieve. Thanks very much. Bye.